Welcome to Leave No Doubt. I've been joined by Harry Cornick for what I think will be a really good conversation, mate, because your journey in football is very unique. We just spoke about it off camera there. It's incredible, really, what you've managed to achieve off the back of, we'll talk about Paul Merson's opinion and saying when you're 14, if you're not in an academy, you should give up. And that's not what you did. So, a bit of a success story. So appreciate you being here, mate. How you doing?
I'm all good, thanks. Yeah, it's been a 5-minute journey here in the early morning, but no, it's lovely. Good to be here.
Good. Thanks, H. To get us started, it's such a common feature of players' careers, isn't it? When they say, when I grow up, I want to play football. And, everybody teaches at school. We say, what did your teacher say to you when you wanted to grow up? What do you want to be? And people say footballer. But a lot of those guys are obviously involved in academies and they're exposed to that environment of what professional football might be. And you weren't really at that age. So what was that like for you, coming to the end of school when you weren't in a proper academy at the time?
It's quite weird, really. So obviously I played football my whole life. I love football, played every day. And I was good. I knew I was good at football, but I was never the best. So I'd play for my local team and I'd be good at it. And I had trials at Bournemouth. I had trials, I think it was at Portsmouth when I was younger. Just went to it, was not good enough. And I just went back to local team and I didn't really think anything of it. I wasn't really gutted about it. I wasn't thinking, I'm not good enough. I just thought, they're so much better than me. And at the time they really were. And then it was when I went to school, my secondary school. So I went to Poole Grammar. And that was the first. So I was the best player at my school when I was at middle school. Went to secondary school, so I'd have been 13, I think it was. And there was Josh Carmichael there, who played for Bournemouth year up. Charlie Davis played for the year up, I think he did. Alfie Laws, Ollie Soulsby, players like that. Ed Tierney was the goalkeeper. They all played for Bournemouth, and they were so much better than me that I thought, I know my level now. I know I'm not the best there is, but I was sort of okay with that. I was happy playing at my local team, scoring loads of goals, being the best player there, and not being good enough for the academy sort of thing. So I went on trial. No, I wasn't good enough, but I was really good friends with these people. So we played at school together. We won county cups. Every county cup I think we won. Got to the national final, and then at the end of year 11, it was sort of like they went off to Bournemouth and did their thing. And I was like, I wasn't really gutted that I wasn't playing it because I didn't think I was good enough. I never thought, I'm going to be a footballer when I'm older. I just thought, I'm just going to play football and enjoy it because I loved football. And I would just go and do a normal job like a normal person and play football on the side and watch these people go and be professional footballers and enjoy it. And I guess it just didn't work out for them, and I got a little bit lucky and used my luck to my advantage and took the most of it.
I think that's quite common, mate, is the attitude you have as a child growing up there, that it would be really easy to think, I'm not good enough. And actually the most challenging attitude to have is probably that I am good enough.
Yeah.
What was it, about you, do you think that, and about the others, that made you think that you weren't quite on their level at that age?
I think physically probably was the main thing. I wasn't really big when I was little. When I was young, I mean. So Josh Carmichael was huge. He was bigger, stronger than everyone else. Technically as well, Charlie Davis, miles better than me. Ollie Soulsby, miles better than me. They were better players. I think maybe it was just the fact I didn't really care. I went into games, I didn't really care. I didn't really think too much of it. I just went out and had fun. I think that was the main thing. When I actually went on trial at Bournemouth, when they offered me a trial when I was, I'd have been 17, 18. I went on trial with them and trained with them. I didn't see it as a trial. I was just playing for my men's local team, loving football. And I was like, I'm just going to train with Bournemouth players. It is what it is. If I don't make it, I don't make it. But I didn't really care. I wasn't bothered by it. So I went and trained with them, just did what I wanted to do. I think now I look at it, young lads, when they train with the first team, they're so scared. They're so nervous to try anything. They're not going to shoot from outside the box. They're just going to pass it because they don't want to look bad upon the professionals. So I probably just went there and just had fun, did what I usually do, and we played a game. It was against Bristol Rovers. I think you might have played in it.
Possibly, yeah, I might have done.
And it was Frank Demouge was playing.
Yeah, I would have done.
Loads of the pros at the time that weren't getting the first team action. They were in League One at the time. Were playing in it, and I come on for the last 30 minutes, just try to take everyone on and score like I usually do, and I got a goal. I played quite well. I just didn't think anything of it. I just went away from that game and just thought, I didn't think, that's made me that could be the goal in my trial that gets me my contract. I could be a professional footballer. I just thought, just scored in a game, I'm happy I scored sort of thing. So I didn't really care. But I think the young lads at the academies, they care so much. I don't know if it's their parents putting pressure on them, like, you've got to make it as a footballer, you've got to go to training, you go to training 3 times a week, could drive an hour. Like, I hear stories about people now that I play with, they used to drive 2 hours every Tuesday evening to go to training and come back, and their mum and dad would drive them all the way there. So they're probably thinking the pressure that their mum and dad are doing so much for them to become a professional footballer, that the pressure heaps up. And it's just like so much stress that they're not really enjoying it anymore. So that might be a reason why I was so relaxed and did so well, because I was just calm, I was happy, and I just played football as if it was a bit of fun. I
think that's incredibly unique, mate, that you had that attitude, because, you know, I ended up being in an academy, played for Portsmouth until I was 15. And I felt super stressed about it, because, you know, young players at the moment, everybody's getting judged all the time. Yeah. Every time you train, you're getting judged. Every time you play, you're getting judged. There's contracts that get given at the end of every season. You identify as a footballer. I'm sure, like, obviously the guys that you grew up with that were at Bournemouth at the time in academies whilst you were at school, you know, you almost identify them as like, that's the footballer. Yeah. Where do you think that, you know, your refreshing attitude towards football's sort of come from?
It's hard to say. I think probably just growing up with a good group of lads and a good family, really. Used to play every day with my brother in the garden with my dad. And funny enough, it's probably more competitive then with my brother than it was going to training and whatnot. So that would have been good. But then I played with a group of mates when I was probably like growing up, like 14 to 17, when I was probably getting good at football, getting to probably where I knew I was better than other people. But I just played with a group of lads who were no good at football. They were awful at football. Like, I'm talking, there was 2 of my best mates called Jack Blake and Jack Morgan. They were so bad at football, but they loved football. They breathed football. They supported Arsenal and Liverpool. They watched every game. They loved football so much. And I just play down the park with them. And it would just be so much fun and enjoyable, probably because I was doing well at it. When you're doing good at something, you always enjoy it. Like, if you're not doing good at something, you don't enjoy it. I say golf, we were saying earlier, like, if you're not playing good golf, you're not enjoying the golf. If you're playing good golf, you love golf. Like, I was just playing good football and I was just enjoying it. So I'm guessing it was just the people I was around that really made me love football and enjoy football and playing it.
So talk to me about those early years that you started playing at Christchurch then, because for people that are not aware, that obviously might follow your career now at Luton, Christchurch are a local team in Bournemouth playing the Wessex League, which I think is step 6 maybe of non-league. Yeah.
I think there were seven when I was there.
7 when you were there, yeah. So, you know, a lot of guys now are so stressed about playing in the youth team at academies. But obviously you weren't doing that. You were playing in the men's level, Wessex League, as an 18-year-old, 17, 18?
Yep.
What was that like? I mean, what did your football lifestyle look like at the time? Had you any ambitions of playing professionally? Like, what was going on during that time?
I had no ambition of playing professionally. I just thought I'd get to as high as I can and just keep enjoying it. Like, I remember going to watch a game when I was 16. I think it was Poole Town. They used to play in the FA Vars. So it would be a big game for Poole Town. I think in the semi-final, 1 away from Wembley. And I was watching that game and I remember thinking to myself, so we're 4, but I remember thinking to myself going, if I could play for Poole Town, like, that would be so cool. Like, there's 1,000 people here watching. That'd be so cool, like, playing for Poole Town. And now I look back and I think, like, so achievable back then, but at the time I thought, like, it was like Carl Preston used to play, and I just look at him thinking, oh my god, he's unbelievable. Russell Kirk, I was looking at him thinking, they're so good at football. But yeah, I grew up, so I went to Christchurch when I was 16, playing for the youth team. Just one of the lads I used to grow up with called Billy Walker, he played for Christchurch, and he was like, come down, play for us, see if you like it. Like, it's a really good club and sort of thing. I went down there, just had a trial on, like, when you're under 16s, you just go and play a few games, and I loved it. Like, there was a really good team, like, there's some really good players there. I was not the best player there when I was there in the youth team. There was loads of good players. Jack Lovell, he was miles better than me. I think he plays for Wimborne now. These players were all better than me at the time, but I just loved playing for him. Like, the manager was so nice, and it was just fun, really. But being with Billy Walker, just enjoying my football. And then played for them. They didn't pay any money, it was free. So it was a good group of lads there that taught me the way it was. Fun enough, the captain of Christchurch first team at the time was Dan Crutchley. It was my PE teacher at school. So, like, I'd speak to him about Christchurch, and he'd be playing for the first team, and I'd be in the under 18s at the time it would have been. And then I started doing well for the youth team. I had a really good season the first year, and the manager of the first team just rung me up like, do you fancy coming and sitting on the bench? Like, we're a few players short. This Saturday we've got Hamworthy United away. Come sit on the bench. I was like, yeah, I guess so, yeah. Like, I'll come down. It was on a Saturday afternoon. Usually I'd be working on a Saturday afternoon, but I didn't have work that day. I'd been fired. So I didn't work that day. So
Fired for what?
I worked at McDonald's, but I was fired from McDonald's. So I had the Saturday afternoon off. So it was sort of like a silver lining getting fired. Like I would never know where to play. So I probably, if I didn't get fired, I wouldn't be where I am now. So I'd never have gone to that game. Maybe you
How
look
mad
at it
is
like
that?
But I had the Saturday afternoon off. I was like, Dad, can you take me down there? He's like, yeah, no problem. He drove me down to the game, sat on the bench, come on for the last 30 minutes. Just didn't think anything of it. Like, oh, it's my first debut for a men's team, really. And then he was like, oh, like, you did well, come back, do it again. Just kept getting on the bench. And then eventually season came to an end where like I was in and out of the first team, still playing under 18s the whole time. Like loving my football for the under 18s. We played on a Sunday, play a game on the Sunday, and then on the Saturday would be the men's team. So I'd go and sit on the bench, come on for the last 10 minutes, maybe 30, maybe not come on, and just get a taste of what like men's football was like at 16, 17, like so different to what youth team was like. Like it was so much more physical, so much harder, but I learned so much from those early years of the men's football that when I went back to play with the youth team, I was so much better playing against young players now that I've known what the older players were doing, like the tricks of the trade, little tactics and sort of things like that. So that really helped me doing that. And eventually the season came to an end and then pre-season came and it was, am I with the under 18s again or am I with the first team? And I was just with the first team for the whole thing. I did a full season with them and then the rest is history.
See, when you're playing for Christchurch, mate, and you know you're playing with an attitude where you've got no ambition to play professional football, you're not putting pressure on yourself to achieve, which I think is super unique. Actually, I think it's difficult to have that attitude, to be honest, mate. At what point did football start to become a little bit more serious for you, or did it ever?
It probably came serious when I had my first day at Bournemouth. The whole time at Christchurch was sort of just still enjoying my football. And I remember I was playing for Christchurch. This was the first year in the first team, so I'd have been 17 going on 18. And so the season started and I started really well. I started scoring some goals and I was just like really loving my football and playing really well, scoring loads of goals. And John Macy, who was the goalie coach at Christchurch at the time, he'd had a career in professional football, so he had a few contacts and he was coming to me and he was going, "You're quite good, Harry, like you might have a chance in the game." And I was going, "Oh, like thanks." Like I didn't think what he meant would be going on to play professionally, but he was like, "Oh, like I'm going to speak to a few people and get a few people down to watch you and see what happens," sort of thing. I was thinking, "Oh, like Ledge, like such a nice thing when people compliment you. It's so nice to know that you're doing well and you're good at something." So I think he had contacts at Stoke and Portsmouth and Reading maybe. So a few scouts came to watch me, probably low level scouts, thinking step 7. He's missed his old academy. He's not a polished article. He's not going to be that great, but we'll go and watch him and see if he's raw and he's got a bit of ability. So they would come down. A few scouts came to watch the game and they were like, "Oh, like he's good. Like, can we take him on trial for a week? Can we do that?" And my dad's from an academic background, so he's a teacher. So I'm doing my A levels at Paul Grammar at the time, A2 levels, and like I'm doing alright at school. Like, I'm not the cleverest, but I'm quite clever. So I'm doing alright. I'm doing my A2s. And my dad thinks I've got to get these grades because grades are everything. Like, I need to get good grades so I can go to university. I can go get a job. Like, that's just the way he did things. His dad did things. Where everyone in my family's always done school, A levels, university, job. So my brother did that. Dad did that. So I'm doing my A2s at the time. Biology, sport, psychology, and English language at the time. I don't know what I did then, but I'm doing okay at school. And I was like, can I go on trial? And he was like, "You're going to miss school. You'd have to miss this week of school and sort of thing. And like, you'd have to go away and stay in Stoke for a week and sort of thing." And I was thinking, "Oh, I don't really want to do that. Like, I quite like going to school. Like, playing for the team at school. Like, I'll miss Christchurch. Like, I missed the training." I was like, didn't think anything of it. So I thought, like, we can always come back to it. I can come back to it. I can go do that another time. And then a Bournemouth scout came and they were like, "Oh, like, can you come down to Bournemouth and do like a week trial or like a week training? Put it down as a week training, not a trial. A week's training, see how he gets on." And I was like, "Oh, like, it's Bournemouth. It's on my doorstep. Like, I can just drive there." Or like, it won't be anything of it. Like, Josh Carmichael plays for him. Like, all my mates from school are still at Bournemouth, like sort of in the youth team. So it was I was still a youth team player as it was at Christchurch. So I'd be going and training with the youth team at Bournemouth. I was like, "Oh, like, I'll do that." And my dad was like, "Oh, like, you can take a week off school." I was like, "Oh, get in. Like, I can go play football for a week." So I got the week off school, But like, I had to catch up on work after. I was like, I've got to catch up on work, but I'll go to training. So I was speaking to like Josh Carmichael because I was still good friends with him. I was like, I'm coming on trial with you. Like, and he was like, really? Like, he was a bit surprised. I was like, yeah. Like, coming down for a week to do training. So I turned up at the training ground, like not knowing anything of it, like not thinking a thing about how big this was for them. And the first day we were training with the first team, all the youth team were. It must have been like a recovery day, and we were all training with them, and they were all like, training with the first team today, I can't believe it. And I was just, because I was new to it, I didn't really think anything of it. I was just thinking, I'm training. So everyone I knew from Bournemouth was there. Brand new good shit. I don't think Louis Blanc was there anymore, but they were all there. And I was thinking, this is huge for me. Like, this is going to be so much fun. Went and did it. But they were all waiting for their scholars. So I guess it worked from what I know, it's you do 16s and 17s into the youth team. And then at the end of the youth team, you have the big meeting.
Yeah.
Do I get a pro or not?
Yeah.
So it was about in February, March. So I think their conversation all day was, do you reckon you're going to get a pro? Like, are you going to get a pro? Like, are you doing well enough to get a pro? And all they thought about was the pro. That was so important to them. And like, to me, it wasn't really, I was just going training, so I didn't really care. But they were just so fixated on this. Are you getting a pro? Like, are you going to make it? Because at the time, I guess for them, it's like make or break. Like, if you don't get the pro,
It is, mate. It was enormous.
That's you done. Like, what do you do now? Like, you've got no qualifications. I think they do. Is it a BTEC or a...
Yeah, you go to, especially Bournemouth at that time, you go to Brockenhurst College, which is like a college in the New Forest, and do like a MVQ in sports studies, like just the most basic one there is, really. There was not really a proper intent on school at all. It was football. As soon as, and like you say, like as soon as you leave school and you're involved in a youth team, you identify as the football player, probably with all your friends and family, and then when that period of time comes when it's pro contract or not, it ultimately does this, makes your life.
Yeah, so they were all getting there, working towards their decisions. So I just went and trained for a week, did well, scored on my, again, like a try, it would have been a friendly match against Bristol Rovers. Did my week, really enjoyed it. And I was like, oh, like that was ledge. Like, I quite like the thought of like being a footballer. Like, that was really fun, like going and training every day. Like, it's every kid's dream, really, isn't it? To play football every day. Like, it's a job, but it's not a job because you love doing it. You love playing football. And at the end of the week, they were like, "Oh, we want to sign you. Like, come and play for the youth team, and we'll give you another year on top of that to be a pro the year after." I think that was the deal at the time, and I was like, "Oh, unreal! Like, perfect. I'm going to go play football." And my dad was like, "You can't go. Like, you can't go play football yet. Like, you've not finished your A levels and whatnot." I was like, "Oh, that's fine." I was like, "Oh, no worries." I would have been happy with not going there. I'd been finished my school. I wasn't really that, I don't know if I wasn't that bothered, but like, I didn't really think too much of it. And Bournemouth were like, "Oh, fine, we'll let you stay and do your A levels at school, and then you can join up with the pros on the first day of what they were making was a 21s team and the 21s team." So I don't think they had one at the time, but it was like the first.
Chris Hargreaves
was the manager, so it would have been the first like one. So I was like, "Oh, can I do that?" And my dad was like, "Yeah, it's fine. Like, finish your A levels, get all your qualifications, just in case you don't make it as a footballer." Because I've always thought, like, I'm going there as not really being the best. Like, if it doesn't work out, I need a plan B. And my dad was so convinced, like, you need a plan B just in case. You need to get this. In case you don't make it as a footballer, like, you've always got something to fall back on and, like, go and do something. And I was like, "Yeah, it's fine." So Bournemouth said, "Yeah, you can not do anything first 6 months, just carry on doing your school, come in and train if you want a few days a week, if you can get the day off, and then join up with the boys in after the summer and thingy." So I signed that deal and finished my A levels, and then met with them on the first day of pre-season.
Amazing, mate. That is, I didn't think like incredible, really, for people to listen that, you know, there's not one right way to ultimately play professionally. Everybody's journey is different. I think yours is so incredibly unique, and this refreshing attitude you have towards pressure is something that we're going to talk a little bit more about now as football becomes a little bit more serious, maybe as you come back. But you know, we've talked a lot about you obviously playing your football at Christchurch and playing with, because you know it was fun and you enjoyed it, coming on trial and not feeling the pressure of that. But I'm sort of interested now to get a little bit of detail as to what kind of player you were then. What do you think the outstanding characteristics of your game were that were eye-catching to a team like Bournemouth at the time? We were in League One, weren't they, at the time?
Yeah. I'd probably just say it was, I was quite fast. I was very direct, like, because I wasn't really, if I gave the ball away, I didn't really care. Like, I just wanted to make things happen. I was very positive in my play. I was trying to take players on, score goals, get crossed in the box. I was so positive and direct that they probably thought, oh, like, it's very raw. I think that's what they say. They say he's a raw player. Like, technically, wasn't great. To this day, technically, I'm still not great at football. But I think physically, I'm quite strong. I'm quite fast. I think I've got quite a lot of stamina. I can go for quite a long time. So that was probably, they looked at it and thought, oh, he's quite raw. We can polish him up and make him a better player. And I think even when I signed for Bournemouth, my first year, I was still that sort of player, very direct, very raw, trying to take players on, get crosses, get shots in the box. That's the sort of player I was, a striker sort of winger. It was only sort of when I signed for Luton that my game didn't change loads, but like I started learning more about the game, about men's football, and had to change the way I played to sort of fit into the team and try and get minutes. And then it became more of like, I've got to do well, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And it became more serious and more, yeah, as you say, pressure and stress. As I've got older, the stress and the pressure of football has become so much more than what it used to be when you're younger and you're enjoying it.
I thought, well, a lot of young players, I think your journey obviously has meant that you maybe didn't feel that pressure when you were younger, and you went into it with a bit more of an open mind, but so much pressure on kids now to play, as obviously you alluded to earlier. It's really difficult. I think if anybody can take insight from your journey, it's that like the less pressure, and like this for parents as well, like the less pressure you can put on your child to be serious about you're going to make it or you've got to make it, the better your child actually might end up being. But these physical attributes that you've got, mate, because I remember, I was a first team player, but I've alluded to it before. I never really played loads and loads of games at Bournemouth at the time. Obviously trained with the first team, and we played like an in-house 11v11 one day. And I remember you played. It's my first exposure, obviously, to you playing, as well as that Bristol Rovers game, and you sort of start to get to know people and their game and stuff. And you just breezed past everybody like effortlessly. Like your running power was genuinely insane, mate. And everybody was like, anybody that coming in after that thinking like Harry Cornick is rapid. And actually, we've got down here that I want to tell a story about your yo-yo test. Have you ever do you remember that yo-yo test?
Yeah, I remember it.
When anybody ever asks me about players who you've played with that are fit, or who's the fittest player you've played with, that shadow of doubt, always telling this story about how because I actually, like, a nice little ego boost for me is that I was part of, like, when yo-yo tests first started, they actually tested it on Bournemouth's first team. I was a young player at the time. I got the best score on the day, like I was fit. And so that score's gone online somewhere, that if somebody types in, sometimes I get someone type in yo-yo test scores, my name will pop up on the Google search. I think like, oh yeah, that's unbelievable. And I remember always thinking, like, I was always under pressure. When you're fit, you're under pressure to do well at the end, or like, I've got this nervous feeling like in this yo-yo test. Anyway, remember we did this yo-yo test, obviously, me, you, like a group of some of the other guys, probably like lads who weren't playing for the first team. And anyway, we get to the end of this like yo-yo test, everybody's dropped out, you're still in. And I'm sat there looking at you thinking, like, this geezer doesn't even look like he's broken a sweat. Like he looks like he's going to be able to go for days. And the test ended up going, boop, 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 test complete. And you just raised your arms up in the air. You're the only person, mate, that I've ever seen complete a yo-yo test. It was like, honestly, insane. And those physical attributes, I think, like, how much, I'm so interested to know how much of that has come naturally to you and how much of that have you had to work really hard on?
All natural, definitely. I used to do cross country in school. I was okay. I wasn't the best at it, but all natural. I've never really worked on it. I've never gone to the gym and worked on my stamina or like done loads of runs to get better at doing better running, I guess. So I don't really know where that's come from, but I remember that first day, well, the first test. I think it was the first testing day. So I'd never done a yo-yo before. I had no idea what it was like, and like a few of the lads were quite nervous about it. They were like, "You got to get a good score here. Like this is quite important." I was thinking, why is it important? Like, you just got, like, you do the best you can. If you're no good at it, you're no good at it. Like, you can't be good at the yo-yo for like a reason. I'm not going to go, oh, you didn't want it enough, sort of thing. Like, you just run until you can't run anymore. So I was just thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be good or bad. Like, I'm just going to do it and see what happens. Completed it. I was buzzing. I was like, get in. Like, I've done well, haven't I?
Done well.
Everyone was like, no, like, that's crazy. I remember because it was like the 21s and like a few first team players. And the head sports scientist, Dan Hodges, he wasn't there at the time. So he actually came up to me like a few days after and he went, "You completed the yo." I was like, yeah, like, not even a well done. He was like, "Oh, that can't be right then." He's like, "No, like, must have been short, or like, must have been cheating." I think that was what I thought. Must have been cheating. Must have gone short on the lines, or like gone early every time. I was like,
it's not a test that people complete.
I was like, "Oh, like, I didn't. I'm sorry if you think I did, but I didn't." I remember the 21s. We actually had to do it like a week later. We had to do it again and video it. They actually had a camera up, videoed the whole thing and completed it again. I was like, they're not happy with a young lad being better than the first team players. Like, they didn't really want that, I guess, or they didn't think it was true. From that, I just thought, like, they don't want us to be better. Like, we were the guinea pigs, I guess. I remember as I got older at Bournemouth, whenever we did testing, we did it a day before the first team. So we did a new test. It'd be the 1600 meters. We'd do it the day before the first team as the guinea pig sort of thing, and as a marker for them to sort of like go, they're the young lads, you've got to be better than them. But yeah, my attributes like that, my physical ones are all natural, really. I didn't work on it when I was younger. I never went to the gym, but I guess I was just blessed with good genes from mum and dad.
Also, it's probably that your lifestyle maybe as well. You weren't. I can't imagine that you ate very badly. Like, obviously, lean guy, like strong, powerful runner. Like, what was your football? I said football lifestyle, but like, how did your lifestyle away from football promote what you were doing on it? Or did it? It
probably just a normal lifestyle. I didn't eat better than anyone else. I remember when I first signed for Bournemouth, my mum and dad were like, "Oh, like, do we need to start doing anything differently? Like, do you need to start eating better? Do you need to start having salads every night or whatnot?" I was like, to be honest, Mum, I don't really know. Like, I'm just going to keep doing what I've always been doing. Like, you keep cooking your lasagnas or your whatever you're cooking on a Wednesday night, and I'll just keep doing as it is. Like, I didn't really change. My lifestyle didn't change. The only thing that would change would be the going out sort of thing. Like, when I was 16 to 18, it was like house parties, go out, get a crate of beers from the shop, get your nan or your mum or your brother to go buy your crate of beers. We'll go for a few beers or whatnot. And all my mates would be out on a Friday. And like, as I got into football, it was like, "Oh, I've got a first team match tomorrow. Like, I can't go out on a Friday." And then I'd have a youth team match on the Sunday, can't go out on a Saturday night. So it's probably just that would be the only thing in my lifestyle that would change. I couldn't go out drinking and boozing with my mates when I could, but there was always times to do it. There would always be times.
You obviously didn't go into this professional environment at Bournemouth with much of an insight as to what it was going to be like. You just alluded there that you didn't even know what a yo-yo test was, and you're the only person I've ever seen who's completed it. So what were your overriding feelings, when you get in the groove of being a professional footballer, like a first year pro? What was it that you liked about it the most, professional football?
It's just being around the lads, really. When I went into Bournemouth, I was really lucky that it was a good group there, and I knew a lot of the lads. Like, I think if I went to if I signed for Stoke, I went on trial at Stoke and got into Stoke, and I didn't know anyone there. It's quite a ruthless environment. That's what I first came to realise. Like, it's dog eat dog out there in the youth team and in the 21s team. Like, you're all striving to get to the first team. You're all striving to be the one player that breaks through, because not many do. But I didn't really see it like that. I was happy for my friends to do well. So at the time, I just signed there. And Bailey Cargill was the chosen one at the time. Like, he was so good at football. When I first went in there, we do like a keep ball, and I obviously was step 7, so I've not really done keep balls before, really. Like, I've done a few, but it's a different kind of training. And I was like no good at it, really. Technically, not a great passer of the ball, not a great first touch. That's not my game, a keep ball. But because I was so raw at the time, I was even worse back then. So I'd do a keep ball and I'd be on a team and they'd be like, "Oh, we got Cornick." They'd be like, "Oh, no, we got Cornick on our team." And I was just like, and I was thinking, I know I'm not good at these sort of thing. I wasn't really bothered by it. So I was no good in training. I wasn't really a good training player. It was only when I started playing games when I was good. But it was a ruthless thing that you wanted to get into the first team and train with the first team that day. So we'd all sit at training for the 21s and there'd be a phone call and it'd be, "We need Bailey Cargill, Brandon Goodship today." And they go off to the first team and be like, "Oh, they were the first team today." And they were the ones who were like closer to it, if you know what I mean. Like closer to making it, I guess, they would think.
On the flip of that, what were the overriding things that you disliked about professional football, if any?
At the start, nothing really. I loved every day. The only thing would be like you couldn't go out with your mates. Like I was used to doing when I was younger and at school, you go out for a few beers with your mates, you go around someone's house and have a house party. At the time, it was like, you can't really do that anymore. That was really the only thing that outside the thing. But I loved football. I loved training. And I loved, after football, we'd go get a coffee, or we'll go slug and lettuce and have lunch. I'd loved all that, like, because you're just stuck with a group, and like they're your best mates then. They're the boys you see every day. You go out with every day, like you become like a little close-knit family. And I don't know if it's the same at every 21s team. It might be, but like I've made friends for life in that 21s that I'm so glad. If I never met them, I'd be gutted, because now I spend all my time out of football speaking to them on PlayStation, going and meeting them, playing golf, going on holiday with them. If I never met them then I don't know where I would have met them at a different workplace. Sort of thing.
You guys are super close, man, and you're very, very close. You, Bailey, Joe Quigley, you know, you guys that spend a lot of time with each other, and actually probably that friendship has pushed you all to the level that you are football-wise.
100%. I mean, it's a really competitive friendship group. They're so competitive, everything they do. I'm not the most competitive outside of football, but like if we play golf, if they lose, they're gutted. If they play tennis, I remember I played tennis with Bailey once. Me, Bailey versus Brandon and Joe in a doubles game. I was not bothered. Like, I did not care if we won or lost. I think I lost a point, and Bailey was going crazy at me. He was like, "What are you doing? Like, you've lost a point." I was like, "Yeah, like it's just a friendly game of tennis." But I think that's just from where they was all youth team players. They've grown up with this competitive nature throughout their whole lives. Like, they've got to beat each other to get to the next step. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. You're fighting against each other. And I didn't really see it as that when I was younger. I didn't really see it as, I've got to be better than you because we're both fighting to get into the first team sort of thing. I never really saw it as that. I just saw it as, we're a team, we're playing together sort of thing.
Which is a unique way of looking at it, mate, because for most young guys, you're right, this sort of ruthless nature of football is that everybody, how many guys get through an under-21s team? It's actually quite lucky that your under-21s team had super talented players. Yeah. That quite a lot of you made debuts for the first team. Obviously, Bailey had a goodish career at Bournemouth, played quite a few times. And then you obviously played for the first team in the FA Cup, didn't you? Yeah. But a lot of those guys have gone on to do pretty well. Joe Quigley's obviously now at my level in the National League, is one of the best strikers in the league. So yeah, I mean, but going back to that sort of training environment that you were in, because you've just touched on there about you keep ball and not really being exposed to it, obviously at Christchurch, where you probably trained a couple of times a week, maybe on an evening. I think you were lucky at the time. Obviously, Chris Hargreaves is a great coach. You spent a lot of time with Stephen Purchase, great coach, obviously now working with Eddie at Newcastle. Those training ground environments, especially at Bournemouth, are pretty unique in terms of the intensity and the amount you've got to think about. Such a thoughtful training session to always be a part of. How did you manage, do you think, to develop into, and you might now touch on, you just say, I'm not the technically best technical player even now, but like you must have learned in training, you must have really developed it in those couple of years that you were involved in that 21's first team.
Yeah. I improved so much. I think even in my first year, I think Stephen Purchase was the one who, like, the sort of father figure within the club that spoke to me a lot and like looked after me, because he knew what I was. He knew what I was good at and what I wasn't, sort of thing. And he sort of helped me so much. Like after training, he'd stay out and be like, come on then, Harry, let's work on something so basic that everyone here in the development squad has been through the youth team. They can all do it, but you can't, sort of thing. Like, let's work on that on your own, almost like not embarrass me, but like not to in front of the other lads. Like, we used to do warm-up drills, kick-ups. I can't do kick-ups. Back then, I was like, I can't really do them that well. I get to 10, 20, drop it. These lads, 100, unlimited. I couldn't do them. And I was like, why can't I do them? Like, and I'd work on it. I'd go out, I'd work on it in my own time, sort of thing. Try and get better at it. But the coaches there were so like understanding of my background that they helped me so much. And they weren't thinking, he can't do that. Forget it.
So give us an insight into some of these basic drills that you were doing then, because people might be watching this thinking, I'm in a similar situation here.
So it would just be something so basic, like a back foot pass and turn. So Perchy would play into me on the back foot, turn, play out to someone else. They'd play in, take up my left foot, turn, play out to the other side. Something so basic as that I've just never really had the exposure to. Like, obviously everything you do, you get better with the more you do. And because these youth team players, 2 years of their lives, they've been waking up, training, Monday to Friday every day. I've sort of missed out on, if you'd say, like, so much hours. I think I've seen something, I remember growing up, you used to say if you did 1,000 hours or something, you'd be like a perfectionist. You say if you play 1,000 hours on the piano,
10,000,
10,000 hours, you'd be piano grade 1, whatever. And these boys have just put in so many more hours than me that they were better technically, they were better at everything. And I just thought to myself, I've just got to put in a little bit extra of what they're doing, an extra half an hour every day to sort of catch up almost. But Perchy was so understanding in the fact that he knew I couldn't do kick-ups, so he'd come out and do kick-ups with me. He'd practice playing two-touch with me to help me improve.
Was there a point in that sort of Bournemouth career and you know, you went on loan, obviously, to loads of levels, really. You spent time in the National League, League One, League Two. Was there a moment or anything that happened or a time that you thought, like, you know what, like I've really improved, like I feel really good about my game?
Yeah. At the same time, there's been times when I thought I'm nowhere near good enough. Like, there's been times when I thought I've improved so much. I can see the improvement. I can see where I'm getting to. And I was happy with my improvement. And that's such a good feeling. But at the same time, there's feelings of also, I go and train with the first team and I'd be no good. I come off the pitch and I think, oh, that was tough. That was really tough today. I was no good. And I thought, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not cut out to be this professional footballer. Maybe I've got to this where I am and I've found my sort of level. Like, because when I went to Bournemouth, it was League One.
They got promoted that year.
Year. So I signed for a League One team. Before you know it, I'm now in a Championship team. First year in the Championship, I think they finished 12th or 10th.
Yeah, mid-table. I think at the end of that season, though, they were really good. They sort of rolled into that next season.
They had some good players, like Brett Pittman, technically unbelievable. You go and train with them, and Callum Wilson. You look at them and think,
I mean, Callum Wilson's turned into a superstar.
Look what he's doing now. I think I'm a way off what they're at, but you would know at Bournemouth they were so nice. The first team was so nice and friendly and like welcoming that it didn't really matter. You had a bad session, it's not the end of the world. You'd have people like Tommy Elphick, who was so good with me. He was so good with me that he would make me feel, no matter what, if I did something wrong, he'd be the first one up to me. It's all right, mate, come on, next one. So everyone was so nice that I could have a bad session and think, oh, I'm not good enough. But they'd come up and reassure me, sort of thing, and like be so nice to help me know that I do belong here and I am going to improve and it's going to take time. And when I finally like it sort of clicks, that it will be good.
You've got to be incredibly aware, mate, to to have those experiences and for you to really, you end up probably going from not caring because it doesn't matter to you to then caring too much and you start to feel under pressure a little bit about it. But to have that awareness of, I'm still learning, like it's going to come, everything's going to work out. And obviously having that feedback from first team players, Tommy Elphick at the time obviously was the outstanding presence of the whole team, really, especially as the captain. But when for you then did playing for Bournemouth's first team become a realistic, not only ambition, but that you thought you were going to be able to do it?
I think when I trained with the first team, I think for a good stint, and I was on the bench a few times, and I was getting close, and I was training well, sort of thing, and I think it was just like the starting to train and be one of the first team. I think it was a big step whether you were a 21s player or a first team player. I still don't think I ever made it to the first team at Bournemouth. In my opinion, I was never a first team player at Bournemouth. I was always a 21s player that trained up, sort of thing. It was probably when I first went on loan to Yeovil and I was actually in a first team, sort of thing. I was in the first team changing room. Like, I got changed with the first team players. I went out and trained every day. I knew what I was doing every day with the first team, sort of thing. At Bournemouth, it was more, you get changed with the 21s, you get a call, you train up. And I'd train up. I probably train for like 2 months, maybe, all the time, solid. And then I might go back for a week and then I'd come back up. But I was never a first team player. Like, I was never, when the boys were getting ready to travel, sort of thing, it was, am I traveling? Am I not? Not, I'm traveling today. I'm wearing my travel gear in. I know I'm traveling today. So it was when I went to Yeovil, really, and I was in the first team there. And I think I scored 9 goals. I think it was League 2 at the time. Scored 9 goals. And I came back from that and I thought, that's a professional environment. I was a professional footballer. That was my life. I played every week. This is my life now, like, sort of thing. That was when I knew I've made it to a certain level and I can kick on. I'm good enough to be here. I think it was when I first went on loan.
When you first get that insight into what professional football looks like, and I mean, like, by playing consistently in a first team, because you had a few loans, didn't you? You went to Yeovil, went to Gillingham, and played, like, you did really well on loan, didn't you? So, what the difference between the differences between, because a lot of there's a lot of players now in that bracket of finishing school and not yet being in a first team, sort of like thousands of kids, mate, in under 18s, under 21s, under 23s now that aren't getting exposed to first team football. How did you feel about yourself and about the game once you'd had those experiences as a first team player compared to always trying to break into a Bournemouth first team that sort of seemed close enough but yet still so far away?
It's refreshing to be a part of a team. Like, it's so nice to be a part of everything. I think that's the thing when you're a young lad, you're not a part of the first team. You might go and train up, but you're not a part of the team, sort of thing. It's just so important. I'd say to any young lad, if I ever spoke to a young lad who was part of a youth team or a 21 team, I'd say the first thing I'd do is try and go on loan and just gain experience about being in a team that cares about you and as a person. Like, you're so important to that team because you've got to feel important to do well. At Bournemouth, I didn't really feel important because I wasn't important. There was 6 players better than me in my position. I was never playing from, like, I didn't really matter that much to Bournemouth. But if you go on loan to a level where you're probably at the time, you can learn so much and improve so much. So I'd say to any young lad, go and get exposure, go and try and drop down to a level that it might not be your end goal, but at that time, that's your level and you're going to improve so much more there than training every day with your academy team.
We now know, mate, sat here now, obviously, like, you've been at Luton for the past 7 years.
Yeah, 6 years.
You are, aside from the championship appearances, you're 133 championship appearances deep now. You've scored 22 goals and 18 assists in the championship, and that's obviously not including the League One and the League Two season. As a professional footballer, what did you think after you've been on loan? What did you think your level was? Like, what sort of perception of yourself did you have? Because we sit here now and we know that you're a championship footballer. Solid. Like, you can say, if you stop playing now, you can say, I made it. As soon as, in my opinion, you get over 100 games at any level, you can say, I've done that. And listen, mate, you've smashed it. Are smashing it. But when you're a League Two player at Luton, did you see yourself being able to hit those heights or not?
I didn't really see it at the time. I think the only thing would be when I was at Bournemouth would be they were championship at the time, and it was Callum Wilson, Matt Ritchie, Mark Pugh, Jan Kermigan, Brett Pittman, Andrew Sermon. I was thinking, when I was younger, they were so good. Like, they were unbelievable. When I go and train with them, each one of them had an ability that made them stand out. Brett Pittman's finishing. To this day, I've not seen a better finisher than Brett Pittman. Mark Pugh's chops. I've not seen a person with a better chop than Mark Pugh. Sort of thing. Like, they were all so good at their actual things. And I thought, if I can get to that level, that would be unbelievable. I would dream about getting to the championship and playing for the championship teams, because of just when I was younger, I wasn't as good as I am now. And then when I went on loan to League Two again, League One, I was like, probably this would be my level. Like, League One and Two, I can play at this level. I feel assured enough to play every week at this level. I'm good enough for this level. I never thought I'd play in the championship, really. And then when I signed for Luton, the first thing Nathan Jones said to me was, "You're going to be a championship player one day." I was like, okay, like, that's nice to know. Like, he believes in me to this day. He still believes in me so much. So I've got so much to thank for him, but he really believed me. He goes, "You're not going to be a winger anymore. You're going to be a striker, and you'll play in the championship. You'll score goals in the championship." I was like, at the time I was thinking, how does he know this? Like, prophecy, like, he sort of thinks it, and everything he said's come true to me. So I never really thought I was going to get to there until I signed for Luton, and he said to me, that is what's going to happen. And he believed in himself, he believed in the club, and he believed in me. And it's all come true, thankfully.
That's unreal, isn't it? That for somebody to have such a vision for you.
It's the first probably manager who's ever thought, this is you. Like, I care so much about you. I want to improve you so much. Like, I've had managers who care in the past, like, and good managers, like Eddie Howe, probably the best manager I've ever seen, like, on the training pitch, sort of thing, about actually improving people. But the first manager who's come up to me, cared, and that proper cared about me. Like, I still think he cares so much about his players, Nathan Jones, that he goes home and he thinks, is he all right? Did he have a good session? Why didn't he have a good session? Is it this? And he'll speak to you about that and try and make sure that you're all right. Everything outside of football, sort of thing, as well.
Let's get a bit of an insight then, mate, into such an incredible story, isn't it, Luton, where you go from League Two, League One, and perform, exceptionally, especially in League One. So, I mean, like, I was playing in League One at the time, and Luton came to Bristol Rovers whilst I was there, and we just got spanked. Like, we just couldn't get anywhere near. Like, it was insane, really. What do you think happened to you as a player? So, to start off, I'll probably tailor a question or detail it in a way that, like, you go from a winger where your outstanding attribute is to be able to run past people. It's very eye-catching. I'm sure supporters of the teams that you were playing in loved you because, as all fans, like some players can be fans players and some players can be players, if you know what I mean. Like, the players are usually the technically gifted guys who never give the ball away and look nice on the ball, but the fans players are the ones that excite, the ones that create, the ones that score, and you certainly are that. So how did your game maybe go from when you started playing for Luton and under Nathan Jones, go from that wide man to the centre forward? What things did you have to think about?
A lot, really. It was a lot of work on the training pitch sort of thing, about trying to change my mindset from drifting out wide and getting on the ball, getting across in the box, to you want to be the one in the middle scoring the goals. Like, you don't want to be out wide anymore. But I'd always end up being the right winger. I think in League Two, we still sometimes played a 4-3-3, and I'd still play on the right. But he'd always say to me, like, you're playing on the right today, but this isn't the end goal. Like, you will be a striker eventually. Like, you've just got to do this for now, for the team, sort of thing. Like,
he always said that to you.
Always said, no matter what happened, you're going to be a striker. Like, you might play right wing a few weeks, but you'll be a striker eventually. Like, we're working on it. More time on the training pitch, more time, hold up play, get in the box, work on your heading, sort of thing. And I'd work loads with him, and at the time it would have been Joaquin Gomez, who was the assistant there, and then another assistant or coach would come in. I'd keep working on it and trying to improve about being the striker. But at the time we had James Collins and Danny Hilton at the time, who were established strikers. I'm not an established striker. I'd scored 9 League Two goals and a couple League One or something like that when I just signed for Luton. So
those two guys have had great careers, haven't they?
They scored 20 a season. Like, even at the start when I signed, they were scoring goals in training. They were scoring loads of goals. Thinking, these are two proper established, like, they're league players who know how to score goals. They know what they're doing, and I've got to try and get ahead of them. But what was good was I knew I was different to anyone at that Luton team at the time. Like, I was so different to anyone else that I was going to play because I brought something different to the team, and the team sort of needed me to take a player on or to run in behind and get the ball in behind to stretch the teams. That I knew I was always going to play, but I wasn't going to be the striker at the time. That was what Nathan Jones maybe wanted, and Danny Hilton and James Collins to score the goals.
So at what point then, like, when was the moment that you started to play up front all the time and feel like you, and you go from your identity, it goes from wide man to striker? And, I've listened to some of the interviews that you've done recently, and you did a lot of stuff in lockdown, and obviously Luton's academy kids ask you a lot of questions. And one of the things that you said is you work on your finishing a lot, and not only your finishing, but your mentality to know how to feel when you're put in those positions. How difficult, how challenging, it might have been easy for you. It's obviously gone very well. When you become the striker, you start playing as a striker, that you're learning all of this on the job, and you then identify as a striker instead of a wide man.
It's hard, really. In training, it was, when I first started playing up front, I got loads of chances, loads of 1v1s, and I couldn't score them. Like, a mental block almost in me when I went through one-on-one was, what am I going to do? The keeper would come at me and I'd be like, oh my God, panic, shoot. And I thought, I'm no good at one-on-ones. I used to go to the coach at the time, I'm no good at one-on-ones. They'd be like, let's work on them. So, like, every day after training, 10 one-on-ones. And I'd do it every day. Same thing, run in across the keeper. And I think there was 4 keepers at the time. 3 of them I'd love to do 1v1s against. I'd see them and I go, I know I'm doing it. I get to a point and I go, now I'm shooting, goal. And if it didn't go in, it was always in that corner. It'd be a really good save, or I might hit the post. I'd be like, oh, that was unlucky, but my mentality's right going into it. I know what I'm doing. But one keeper, Harry Cornick, even to this day, I hate 1v1s against him. Like, I've just still got this mental block against him where he's got me more than I've got him. Like, he's got me right where he wants me, and I can't score with them against him. Like, I've got more over time, but at the first start I do him, I couldn't score. He read me every time. I start going near post, and he'd read that, and I'd be like, oh, what can I do to beat this guy? Sort of thing. And you just got to sort of work out what works for you. And whatever you're good at, you just keep doing it. So there was a coach called Emiliano or something like that. He came to Luton after Nathan Jones left, and he said, go near post every time. I was like, He goes, just go near post and high every time. If you score, well done. If you don't, you've done what you wanted to do. You can't do any more. And that was my first year in the Championship. And I think I scored 4 one-on-ones every time, near post. Bristol City at home, Birmingham away, near post high. And I was thinking, perfect, I've cracked it. And then that was Graham Jones, the manager. And he was the one, that was when I first started being a striker properly. Every game up front. Graham Jones, he came in, you're a striker. He had me drilled into being a striker. I knew what I was doing with him every time. He left. Nathan James comes back in. Got to go across goal. I was thinking, I've just sussed out this near post thing. He's going across goal. I was thinking, you've got to learn it all again. Sort of, not learn it again, but I've got to change what I'm doing. But yeah, you just got to find what works for you, really, at the time.
This an overriding theme, it seems, Harry, on your career is this development of you as a player and how much work has gone into your game on the training pitch. I think match days have probably always been easier for you than training in a way, because training is usually smaller drills, loads of the ball, loads of technical stuff, and then on a match day, I was just watching you, obviously when you were young at Bournemouth, thinking like match days, you were just able to run freely into space and make people look just like, even fast players look slow. But this development over time on the training pitch has been such obviously key to your rise ultimately as a player. I know obviously that you weren't the only player at Luton that got promoted twice, but you were a big part of it. How much work, looking back now, because at the time you don't think you're doing anything, but how important do you think all this work you've done on the training pitch has been for you? And if you're going to give anybody an advice on a training ground environment and what to do, what advice would you give them?
Training's been huge for me. You are so right. I know I'm a game player. I'm not a training player. I'm not a keep ball. After keep ball go, you were so good in the keep ball today, or pass and drill, you was excellent today in the pass and drill. I've never been good at them, but I know that. I never thought I've got to be good at them. I just knew I wasn't good at them. I'll be as good as I can be, and I'll work so hard to get better at it. And I did work hard to get better at it, and I have got a lot better, but I knew I wasn't the best. And I think that sort of helped me. Like, I didn't feel the pressure. I didn't need to be good at the keep ball. Like, who cares if you're not good at a keep ball? If I had the worst training sessions 5 days in a row, awful, and I go and score 2 on the Saturday, no one cares. Like, that's the main thing. The game's the only important thing. You're working all week at training for that one game, for that one chance, or even that one pass that you get that you've worked on in training that you can do, sort of thing. So training's been huge for me. And when I was at Bournemouth working on, when I first signed, Tinner's Simon Weatherson, I think his name was.
Simon Witherston, yeah.
That's the one. He used to work with me, and he was good technically, way better than me technically, and he was a 45-year-old man who never played professional football.
I played with him. He was a midfielder at Eastbourne when I went there on loan. He was a really good player.
Technically
really
unbelievable. Good. And we just work on drills. We go out in the morning, 15 minutes before the first team came out. I was really putting the goals out and the cones out for the boys. Like, I was sort of helping the kit man and him set his session up as a coach. But after I set the session up with him, we do a bit technically, and I would get so frustrated at doing just a simple right foot volley, left foot volley back into his hands that I'd fail, but he would still come up with me every other morning and religiously do it with me. And I'd be like, at the time I didn't really appreciate that, but now what he did for me, I appreciate so much, because he's helped me so much. And even the little things like maybe Eddie Howe after training session, he'd go, H, let's work on your finishing today. And I'd be like, you've got 24 lads, all first team players doing extras, and you've come over to me to do a session with me. Like, at the time I didn't really think anything of it, but now I'm thinking that was nice of you. That I really appreciate that now.
It's incredible, isn't it? That honestly, that training ground environment at Bournemouth was amazing. Really helped me develop no end. And I remember, obviously, this was a couple of years or a few years before you'd signed, that I've probably told this story before in this podcast, but the manager pulled me after training one day. I was about 18, 19. I thought like I was at the edge of playing for the first team. I was only still training and being involved in match days without ever really getting on. Pulled me to the side, sat on a couple of balls on the side of the training pitch. A couple of lads doing extra. Quite a lot of the lads had gone in. So we had sort of an older team then. Yeah. He says, how do you feel? I was like, I feel like I'm doing really well. Like I'm not far away from playing. He said, you're not doing anywhere near enough. Because in training I would have to travel with some older guys. I'd go straight home after training. Like, I wouldn't stay do any extras, wouldn't do any gym or anything like that. So you're not doing way more than enough. So I ended up changing my whole lifestyle off the back of that, which helped. That, like, don't get me wrong, I never really got into the first team after that anyway, but just my development as a player and training and staying out doing the extras afterwards was so important to me. Know how important they were to you as well. But the thing that I want to ask you is that you know what it's like, H, when you go out before a training session compared to doing extras after a training session, there's a misconception about what that's like. And there can be a bit of an ego hit, I think. If you're made to go out before training to practice, for some reason it's seen as a punishment. As a punishment instead of after training.
Yeah. I felt that. When I first started going out in the mornings, I thought, this is crap. I hate this. Why am I going out and doing this? Did it a few times. And after I did it a few times, I thought, this is exactly what I need. Like, none of the other lads are around. And I felt like when I was younger and I was no good at doing kick-ups, I was no good at doing simple right foot, left foot volleys, that if the lads were all there watching, it becomes a little bit of a laugh, a joke. If I do a bad touch or something, it's sort of funny. Like, and I start going into this sort of like defense mechanism of, I laugh it off. You go out in the mornings, you do a bad touch, you're like, I need to get that right. Like, I need to start working on this. So in the morning, it was more just me and a coach working on it, or just me. And to be fair, there's a good few group at Bournemouth that they would help me a lot technically. Bailey Carg would be one. He'd be like, why don't you just go out and work on it? And I'd be like, oh, no. He'd be like, no, come on, let's go do it. Let's work on doing something so simple that he could do perfect. Kick-ups. Go and work on your kick-ups, do 100 in the morning. And he was good for me as well. But going out in the morning would be just me working on me. Rather than at the end, you go out and you do a session after training, extras. It would be finishing you and 3 other players, or you'd be doing a little drill, 4 other players. Like, you're with them. You're not working on yourself. You're working against them or with them, sort of thing. Like, when you work on something on your own, you sort of see more satisfaction that you've done it. And I think that would be if I said it to a young lad or someone who wants to improve at anything, just do it on your own and you'll see the improvements, and like, you'll be happy with the improvements. Like, you're not doing it for any other reason than just to improve. Like, once you start seeing the results, it makes it so much better.
How easy or challenging was it to get over that ego, a kick of, they're making me go out before training, it's a punishment? Like, how easy was it for you to get over that?
At the time, it was probably tougher. Now I look back on it, I think, that was a breeze. But at the time, it was probably like, 15 minutes before training, like, I've got to go put the goals out and do. I was thinking, why am I doing this? Why is he not doing it? Sort of thing. So it was a bit of a kick, but I knew I wasn't good at it. Like, there's no point me hiding behind the fact that I wasn't good at doing a keep ball. I knew I wasn't good at it. I knew I had to work on it. Just do it. Like, there'd be people that after training, they're not fit. They do runs. You don't look at them and think, he's doing runs, sort of thing. It's not good. He's got to work on his running. I was always good at running. I was always fit. I was always fast. I didn't really need to work on that. But I knew I needed to work on my technical ability. So that's where I need to focus my stuff, sort of thing.
All this training ground environment, obviously, mate, developed you into a player that you managed to really flourish on a match day, especially obviously for Luton, and promotion, championship. I think there was maybe one year that you managed to stay up, and then after that, obviously last year, playoffs. Just incredible rise, mate, and especially for you that you've been a part of that group that's really improved. The fan base at Luton is obviously incredible. They're one of these sort of like clubs with an identity that some players might be able to, or away teams will come and feel intimidated. That sort of pressure environment. And I can imagine when you do well, it's amazing, but when you're not, it's a difficult play to play. How have you been able to deal with the pressure of that big club environment with a really passionate fan base, and been able to ultimately performing incredibly well?
I think success, really. I think we had back-to-back promotions, sort of thing. League Two was unbelievable. Like, we would win 7-0 some weeks, and the fans would love it, and we'd love it, and we were better than everyone else in League Two, but we had the best players. If we didn't get promoted, it would have been a terrible season for us. So we had to get promoted, sort of thing. And we sort of just used that momentum and sort of the enjoyment of winning every week straight into League One. That it was like, it's no different. This, like, we know how good we are. We know what we're doing. Like, we just got to keep playing as we're playing. And we sort of just went into League One treating every team the same, whether it was a Sunderland, a Portsmouth, because there's some big teams in League One. Don't give them as much respect as they deserve. Treat as if you're going to Accrington Stanley away. You're going to Portsmouth away. It's just another football game. And it's sort of like, we just had the momentum really that just kept going through and through and through. And we had some really good players at the time that were playing under their level, really. We had James Justin and Jack Stacey, our 2 fullbacks, and we were so dependent on them. They were unbelievable. They've gone on to play Premier League games, 50 to 100 Premier League games, and they're unbelievable. They were our catalyst, really. They were our star men that we needed them every week.
Yeah, they were super talented, weren't they? They're 2 fullbacks. But like you particularly, you now played in the Championship for, I think, the last 3-4 seasons, maybe.
Yeah.
And done incredibly well, mate. What do you think it is about your game now that you've been able to, to do so well, to perform so well, to bridge that gap? Because a lot of players that I speak, the players that I speak to on this podcast, mate, I will ask them, because earlier you told us Nathan Jones said you're going to be a Championship striker when you're a League 2 player, and there's no way of you knowing whether that was going to come true or not. Obviously, it has.
Yeah.
I ask players when they leave levels. So you leave Bournemouth when they get promoted to the Premier League, right? And a question I ask some of the guys is, do you feel like you were a Premier League player, or did you become a Premier League player? So I'm going to ask you, you obviously became a Championship player, but when Nathan Jones told you that you were going to be one, do you think you were going to do as well as you have done in the Champ?
No way. Even when we got to the Championship, I thought, this is like, when you're a kid, you see these teams, West Broms and Norwiches, and you're playing against them, they're big clubs. I never thought I'd get there. Even when he said it to me, I thought, it's nice that he thinks that. If I get there, it's unbelievable. But if I don't, I don't. It's not the end of the world. I'm still playing football. I'm doing what I love. But when we got to the Championship, I thought, we got first games, the fixtures come out, Middlesbrough at home. I was thinking, we got Middlesbrough. Mark Viduka, Yakubu used to play for him. These are huge clubs. You go away to these grounds and Sunderland away or the Sheffield United away, there's thousands of people there. They're proper huge football clubs. But because I've been at Luton, Luton's a huge club in League 2. We sold out 11, 12,000 every week. I was used to the huge club. I was used to big game sort of thing. Every home game at Luton was similar to what an away game in the Championship's I guess. Nothing's changed. Our home game is still the same. Home against Accrington Stanley to home against Millwall, still the same, exactly the same sort of thing. But it was challenging at the start, but I still went into the Championship thinking, this is a freebie. This is a freebie, almost a look at the Championship. We're in the Championship. We don't really, do we deserve to be here? Yeah, because we won League 1, but we're not a Championship side at the time. We didn't have Championship players. We didn't have a Championship budget. Our stadium, far from Championship, so old school that it was sort of no one's expecting us to do anything well. And we started doing really well. And we struggled at times because we were Luton Town. We lost 7-0 to Brentford after that. We were oh my God, this is horrible. This is tough. But then we'd grind out a 2-0, 2-1 win over Brentford at home. It was almost a freebie that you go out and enjoy it. And I looked at it, I think I scored 9 goals in my first year in the Championship. I was looking at it it's a freebie. I'm playing against West Brom away. What a challenge. Go and enjoy it sort of thing.
How many people after, you start to score Championship goals and perform really well, how many people from your early career that you ultimately left behind, right? You have these guys that you played in the youth team with, some of them are doing really well. We've talked about Bailey Cargill and Joe Quigley already. They're still professional footballers. But where you're performing and the level that you're playing at has obviously surpassed what they're doing. How many people, and I mean people from school, people from home, friends that you grew up with, that nobody could have probably foreseen when you were playing for Christchurch as a 17, 18-year-old that you would go on to score, 22 goals in the Championship. How many people have reached out to you since then?
Quite a lot, but it's always nice. I've never felt an envy almost. Everyone's happy for me. I maybe that's just because of who I am. Always just happy. I was always nice to people. I was always friendly. I wouldn't wish bad upon anyone. I would hate to think that someone's wishing bad upon me from my past sort of thing. That wouldn't be nice. I wouldn't like that because I think I've been nice to everyone. But they probably look at their phone, people I used to go to school with, look at their phone and think, how, that can't be the Harry Cornick I used to go to school with, can it? They must look at it and think, that can't be him. Even from my youth team at football, when I first signed for Bournemouth, the players there, there was players like Harrison Gills, Jordan Chidozie, they were the established 21s players. They probably saw me as not the best trainer sort of thing. I'd do well in the games, but they probably never thought I'd get to where I am. I never thought I'd get to where I am, but everyone's sort of happy for me and they've messaged me nice things and people are happy for me, which I quite like.
I think it's incredible, mate, that you're so humble about obviously the journey you've been on. And that is really endearing, obviously, that you are that way. But not a lot of people in football are, right? You get the academy guys that think they've made it too soon when they haven't. And you've probably been around a load of guys now that have different personalities in football. How far or how beneficial do you think it's been, your outlook on pressure and football has always been quite light-hearted in terms of like you don't feel necessarily loads of pressure. You're there to enjoy. You don't put a lot of emphasis on yourself to perform. I'm sure obviously you want to play well, but it's not the be-all and end-all. How important do you think that approach to football has been for you?
I think it's been huge. I think if I went back and told myself back then how important that trial at Bournemouth would be, I would never have done well. If I went back to even a few games when I was younger and said, if you don't play well here, you might not make it, sort of thing, I would never have played the way I did, the freedom I have. You would never have that. So that was so important for me, the not caring as much, because I didn't really understand it at the time. That was what it would be. I didn't understand how important the trial was. I didn't understand how important the first few games were, the training sessions were. I just went out and enjoyed it and had fun. And that's the only reason why I am here, really, because I didn't feel the pressure. I didn't care. But now, looking back on it, it was so important for me. So some players care so much and they beat themselves up if they have a bad game, and it really haunts them. And the next game they're the same and they keep beating themselves down. And I was the same when I think it was my third year in the Championship or second year in the Championship. I scored 1 goal. I got to Christmas, I hadn't scored yet, and I was like, I feel the pressure now. This is hard. But I was playing well in the games and I was doing well and contributing to the team. I was starting every week or every other week. That I knew I was helping the team and playing well, but I just couldn't score. And that mental thing inside me, I was thinking the pressure's building, pressure. And that's probably the first time in my career I felt like it got on top of me a little bit and I stopped enjoying football. I was so worried about what everyone else saw and thought about me. That was probably the only time in my career I felt the real pressure and thought, this is hard.
How then, in your opinion, because I can tell you from experience of an academy environment that there is pressure and it's probably more difficult for young guys not to feel pressure than obviously to feel the way that you felt. In your opinion, what sort of advice can you give to young guys as to how they can play with a bit more freedom?
It's so hard because it is all from within. It's how you feel. If you don't feel the freedom, you're not going to play it. But you look at the best players in the world or the best players when you're younger, they play with the freedom. They know they're good at football. They know what they're doing. They go out and do what they're good at and they just enjoy it. It's so hard to try and say to someone, go and enjoy it, go and have fun, because how do you make someone have fun? You can't do that. You can't do it. You've just got to be yourself, really, I guess. But if yourself's not freedom and enjoyment, then it is hard. So I wouldn't know how to tell someone to do it. I think it's just who's around you and make sure you're around good people. I think that'd be what I'd say. Make sure you've got the right people around you and the right friends and the right people within a club. Because you go to a club and you make friends with everyone. You're friends with everyone on the team, but you'll always have a little clique or a little few that you're really close to. And if you can make sure those ones are going to be beneficial for you and make you feel the best way you can be. Like at Luton, I've got the best group around me. The best group ever. I couldn't ask for better people around me that I know I can go out and train, enjoy it, have so much fun. They're going to make me improve and they're going to make me be serious about improving. But I'm going to be free and be who I am out there because I'm around good people, sort of thing.
It's good advice, mate. One of the last things I want to ask you before we get into, we've got some questions to fire at you, but what do you think the main overriding difference between Harry Cornick, who was taken to Bournemouth after a trial, compared to the Harry Cornick now, who sits across from me, 133 championship appearance deep, 22 goals and 18 assists?
A lot more knowledge, a lot more understanding of the game, sort of thing. A lot of hours have gone in to help me improve physically, improve technically, sort of thing. But mentally, I think would be the main thing, that to sort of understand about how much it means for yourself and for other people around you. Like, this is your career, this is your life, really. If you don't play well, you don't score goals, you're not going to get a new contract, sort of thing. It'd be the understanding of football's a serious game and that it's your livelihood, it's your bread and butter. You've got to do what you've got to do. So I think that'd be what it is, the understanding of what football is.
Well, what's mental development look like for you then? How have you managed to do that?
Just experiences, really. Every experience I've had has helped me. Going on loan to Yeovil and playing against Oxford away and getting about 3 touches, losing the ball every game, and coming in after the game and just sitting, looking at the floor thinking, what was that? Like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't want to be here anymore, sort of thing. The darkest times that I've had, to the jubilation of staying up on the last day of the season in the Championship, sort of thing. Like, the experiences you gain, you've just got to go out and get as many experiences as you can, learn as much as you can, because it's a short career, it really is. If you're just doing the same things every day and you're staying in your comfort zone, you're not going to learn, you're not going to improve. You just got to try and get as many experiences as you can. Whether that is going to the worst team in Conference South, you learn so much more there than you would if you just stayed in your comfort zone at an academy, I guess.
The highs and lows of football, mate, are enormous, aren't they? Up and down like a yo-yo, but a conversation that quite often have or ask people about is, you've gone through all these experiences, trials, going on loan, playing well, playing badly, being promoted, just staying up. Like, all these experiences have ultimately mastered you as a footballer and as a person now. But you have to go through those experiences to get the perspective on football, right, that you have now. Do you think people can be aware before they've experienced things of what it's going to feel like or what football is going to be like? Or do you think, because you've been able to come through all these tests and obviously ultimately now a successful Championship player, but some people crumble when they hit challenging times. Do you think people need to be aware of how challenging football is going to be, or do you think they need to go through things to get better off the back of it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you need to experience it. You can see it sometimes, but it's so hard to tell someone how they're going to feel when they have a bad game. We've all had bad games, but you can have a bad game at a conference when you're on loan. Conference South, you have a bad game when you're on loan. You go away from it, it's done. That doesn't matter anymore. But if I had a bad game now, I think about that for a lot longer, much more. The multiplied factor of how I feel is so much more than how it used to, because I don't know why it'd be more a bigger level maybe, or it's more my livelihood sort of thing, that it's all multiplied on. But you get experiences whatever you do. If you lose a 5-0s in training, you'll feel a tiny bit of how you feel if you lose on a match day, because you don't want to lose. Like, it's just multiplied on. So you just got to keep experiencing it, whatever level, whatever way it's at, how much that little thing means to you. It'll be the same feeling, just more multiplied on, I would say, probably.
All right, mate. I'm going to fire some questions at you. I might ask you a little bit more once I've asked them. But the first one is, what is the best piece of advice anybody has ever given you in your career?
Yeah, nice.
I've chucked it on you a bit there, mate.
Yeah, no. It probably just my dad. My dad messaged me before every game, and he just always says, just like, be happy, enjoy it, and have fun. That's all he ever says to me. And he always messages me every day before a game saying, live, love, dream. That's what he says. Just live in it, enjoy it, love it, dream big.
That's nice, man. That's really good. What, in your opinion, has been your best performance ever?
Best performance ever. Good question. I'd probably say last year, Millwall away. I scored 2. I thought I played really well in that. That was probably my best ever performance in terms of like outcomes and sort of, we won 2-0. I scored the only 2 goals, and that was the performance. Like, I thought it was me that I scored the 2 goals, and I felt so important after that game, sort of thing. Felt like I'd won it for the team, and it felt so good to know that what I'd done had helped the team, sort of thing. So probably my best performance, that one. Do
you approach games all the same, or do you think there was anything that was a little bit different about that game? Or
we actually went to the cinema the night before. We had an away game. Went to the cinema the night before, and we watched Venom. Me and a few of the lads. Maybe I was more relaxed. Maybe I was a bit happier than sitting in my hotel room just thinking about the game. So maybe that was it. But yeah, went to cinema.
Start going to cinema every Friday night.
That's what I might start doing.
Third one is the most difficult moment of your career.
Yeah, nice. It would be when I wasn't scoring last year in the 2 years ago in the Championship, and I got to Christmas time and I hadn't scored yet, and I was like, oh. And I remember seeing on Twitter, and I hated it. To this day, I hate it. I actually blocked the account. I seen it off because Twitter's so bad. It comes up saying suggested posts, or I think it was something like that, or someone retweeted that I followed.
But you've seen something that you've not gone looking for.
Yeah, my only advice would be to a young footballer is never type your name in on Twitter. Do not look at your name on Twitter. Do not, if you have a good game, don't type it in. If you have a bad game, don't type it in, because everyone's going to have an opinion. And when I was younger, I was bad for it. I used to play a game when I was on loan at Yeovil, type my name in. Harry Cornick was awful today. Get him out of our club. We don't want him on loan anymore. And I'd be so upset. I'd be so sad. I'd be going and think, it's no good. Like, do not type your name in. And I've learned not to do that now. But last year I seen it. Will Harry Cornick score a championship goal this year? Poll, yes or no? I seen that. I went, oh my God, like, someone's like doing that. I think that's so annoying. But they're fans. Like, they have a right to have their opinion. And it's just social media now is they voice their opinions. They're allowed to do that. And that's what they want to do. But so many pages do it now for like clickbait, or they do it to get a few retweets or likes. And I seen, I hated it.
We're sat in, we're sat in Tom Lockie's house now, and when I had a conversation with him on this podcast, he spoke about not having social media and how much that benefited him. I think it's a massive message to
so bad because
young players now.
When you're having a few good games, social media is the best. You get tweets, you get messages. Oh, well played today. You were unbelievable today. You put a post up, loads of likes, sort of thing. When I was younger, I loved it. I don't really post on social media now anymore. I don't post on Twitter. I don't post on Instagram that much anymore, because it's just a little fix for yourself, a little ego fix that when it's going well, it's lovely. But when it's not going well and you see a few things about yourself, it's horrible, because you don't want to play bad. But when you do, you know you've played a bad game, and you go on Twitter and you see all these people saying these things about you, it is horrible. It does hurt, but that's life, isn't it?
Yeah, you can say you're as thick-skinned as you like, but ultimately, people saying bad things about you, don't matter if you're Cristiano Ronaldo or whoever it is, like, it hurts, man. Like,
it does. So just don't type your name in. That's what I would do. Never type it in.
Good advice, H. The best player that you've ever played with?
Best player I've ever played with? Tom Lockie's putting his hand up, but it's not him. It's not him. When I was at Bournemouth, probably growing up, the one I would look at, I probably would have said, he's gone on so well. Like, Callum Wilson was so good athletically. He was like the best player in terms of like, he's not similar to me because he's so much better than me, but he wasn't the best technically. He wasn't the best finisher. He actually said to me, he said, if you can't score, just go around the keeper. You're more likely to score an open goal than you are 1v1. He used to say it to me.
That's not bad advice.
And he did that all the time. He used to go around the keepers all the time. So he was probably the best player, like actual player, but technical gifted. Harry Art was unbelievable. He used to take corners left and right footed in training. He'd never give the ball away. So he'd probably be the best player, Harry Art.
He was talented, wasn't he? He was super talented. Second to last, the most important attribute, in your opinion, that players need to have if they're going to make a career out of the game?
Most important attribute? I'd say probably a mental toughness to deal with adversity, to deal with the highs and the lows of football. I think it's so hard to work on like your mental game, but like you don't work on it probably when you're younger. You don't really understand it when you're younger. You work on you go to the gym, you work physically, you work on your football, but you never work on your mental side. So to be able to deal with the highs and lows of football probably would be the most important thing, and come through and believe in yourself. A
lot of people say that, that it's this mental side, and we've obviously touched on it there. So the reason why I asked you really was, do you think you can build mental toughness before you've gone through stuff? You, as I said earlier, you only build it through experiences. Like, you can only build it by learning and failing and bouncing back from that. That's the only way you can really deal with getting that mental side of your game. Like, you can work on it all you want. You can read as many books as you want and learn little tactics and tricks of the trade to sort of like deal with pressure or deal with doing bad. But it's probably just experience, going through the highs and lows and coming up stronger. It's just difficult to fail, right? When you fail, you feel like lower than a snake's belly. It's like, it's really difficult, and you can't see past your failure. But it's, as you look back, it does help you. Okay, and last one, mate. What advice would you give to a young Harry Cornick just starting out his career? Just keep believing in yourself. You're there for a reason. Keep believing in yourself. Keep working hard, and the world is your oyster. I think it's such an important message, isn't it? Believe in yourself. It's actually so difficult to do. But you're always there for a reason. Someone's seen something in you, no matter what you're doing in life. Someone sees something in you, or you've got to where you are for a reason. Like, you're not there by chance. You haven't got to where you are through just luck. Just try and make the most of it. Don't waste an opportunity like that. Listen, Harry, the overriding theme of your career, I think, has been development, really. You know, you've got such a unique start in the professional game that I think is so relatable to people listening to this, because 16, 17, if you're not in a youth team when you leave school, you know, your career's not finished. I'm sat across the table from a successful championship player who was never in a scholarship or in an academy. I think it's so refreshing to hear your thoughts on the mental side of football and how you didn't put yourself under any pressure. And I really appreciate your insight into your experiences, mate. And hopefully a lot of people listening to this can take a lot from that.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Cheers, H.